The issues facing our fishing industries are many in number, and it would be impossible to mention or discuss all of the problems which fishermen have raised with me in the context of this report, but I'll do my best, Minister. Looking at the Seafood Task Force report, the executive summary, a couple of paragraphs jump out at me. It says the Irish seafood sector is, in many ways, in the eye of the storm. It's been shaped by the common experience of EU membership alongside the UK, since both joined the EC as it was then in 1973. Irish boats fished and shared waters in the English Channel or off Scotland and Killybegs. Trawlers became familiar sights in ports of Ullapool and Lerwick in the Shetland Islands. The Brexit TCA deal has brought a sudden and a dramatic shift in the landscape of the entire Irish seafood sector in a number of respects. The Irish fleet has lost access to 15% of annual quota, mainly affecting pelagic stocks, prawns and white fish stocks such as megrim, monkfish and haddock. Irish seafood exports to the UK, a key market worth 80 million pre-Brexit, are severely impacted. Irish seafood imports from the UK, worth 219 million in 2018, a key input to the Irish retail and processing supply chain, have been disrupted. Vital seafood export routes, primarily the land bridge via the UK, have been curtailed. Established Irish-UK links at scientific and policy levels in the EU and ICES have been lost. The ICES. The key question arising from this is, of course, what are we going to do about it, and is how are we going to protect our fishing industry from further harm and devastation. Burden sharing is an often spoken phrase when it comes to fishing. Such an apt name, because so many burdens have been placed on the Irish fishing sector. It's not reward sharing, it's burden sharing. And surely the spirit of the EU is to help people, not to place burdens upon them. The common fisheries policy is an outdated, severe burden on our Irish fishermen and women. To quote again directly from the report, Ireland contributed about 15% of the total value of our total 2020 fisheries quota to the agreement. Proportionally, this is substantially more than that of any other member state impacted by the TCA. Again, we see that it is the Irish fishers who pay the heaviest price. The Irish government owes it to the Irish fishing industry to do all it can to create the conditions for our fishing industry to thrive. We made many concessions in order to get an EU agreement over the line. Our fishermen were neglected. The on-level playing field is another major concern of fishermen that I have mentioned previously in debates here in the Fisheries Bill. Some of what I said then needs to be repeated because it's still causing significant anger amongst those in the industry and, moreover, particularly in our Wexford ports. An Irish citizen who commits an infringement in Irish waters will have penalty points applied by the Irish authorities. Yet, when a foreign master commits an infringement in Irish waters, they will not have penalty points applied by the Irish authorities. All we can do is notify the authority in their country of origin. That's if they were to be inspected at all. We should have the opportunity to police our own waters as we see fit, rather than only being able to refer offences to other jurisdictions. It's a fundamental issue of sovereignty over our own affairs, and whilst Ireland has seen many benefits from our membership of the EU, our sovereignty over things such as our fishing rights has been steadily eroded away to the detriment of Irish fishers. We do not have a level playing field, Minister. It seems we're not currently able to police our own waters, and we do not have the right to punish offenders in our own waters, a very concerning state of affairs. I know there is an urgent need for a review of the common fisheries policy. If ever these issues are to be dealt with to deliver a policy for how we fish today, but not 50 years ago. The report says that the Minister has set down that Ireland is seeking a comprehensive review to inform a full reform of the current policy. He has made it clear that the Common Fisheries Policy Review must take stock of the disproportionate impacts imposed on the Irish fishing industry by Brexit and the TCA. He also made clear that Ireland will be seeking to address the imbalance in the quota transfers of the TCA, and I have heard you say that myself, Minister. And I welcome the news, and I sincerely hope that it isn't an empty promise on your behalf. We need to stand firm on this during negotiations and debates. I wish you well in this work, because the fishing sector, they're absolutely relying on you. And all they want, Minister, is a fair deal in order for Irish fishers and fishermen and women to be sustainable, just a level playing field. And from the 1st of April, certain Irish fishing boats, many based in County Wexford, have not been allowed to land their catch in UK ports. They've had to use an EU port instead, adding extra time and costs to their journeys, plus the added costs of getting their catch back to Ireland. Hundreds of extra nautical miles, hundreds of extra kilometres to earn their living and help their communities to survive, with adding risk to life and limb. It also results in greater levels of emissions, which the government seem to be only concerned with at some level. This burden of not being able to land a catch in UK ports wouldn't have been quite as bad, except for the fact that we offered 5 extra landing ports in Ireland to facilitate foreign registered fishing vessels, to land their catches here. So we bent over backwards to accommodate people we have no responsibility for, and yet our fishermen feel cast to one side. And finally, Count Corla, I want to raise the issue of salmon drift net fishing, a forgotten sector, and Minister, one that I have discussed with you briefly. But back in 2005, the sector was effectively closed down, using the guise of protecting fish stocks. In 2006, a 25 million decommissioning scheme or hardship scheme was introduced, and only those who agreed not to reapply for their licences were compensated for the loss of livelihood. A response to a PQ I submitted a few weeks ago said that 1,046 licence holders availed of the hardship scheme. There were a number of licence holders who decided against applying for the scheme, as they wanted to be able to resume fishing in the future, and many had done for decades beforehand, and they were assured that they could. Now, 16 years later, they still have not been allowed to resume their fishing activity. In some instances, people have been stripped of their livelihood and prevented from engaging in the activity of salmon drift fishing for 16 years. Minister, government has a responsibility to these people. And the PQ response said that there were now only 79 people with still active licences in 2021. Now, that might be a relatively small number, but it's still 79 people without their opportunity to earn a living, if it be from salmon drift net fishing. And it has impacted far more than just the 79 people who hold the licence. It's impacted their families, if we take it into account that it was at one point their actual livelihood. And in light of that fact, in light of the fact that this fishing has been banned for an unforeseeably long length of time, I can only assume that in 2005 it was expected to last for possibly a year or two. But Minister, should we not now permit that there are only 79 licence holders? Can we not reinstate their right to fish? Because if we're not going to do that, I think we do have to compensate them, Count Corla. I think fair is fair. When the fishing was stopped for these people, there was well over 1,100 licences active. And again, Minister, now there's only 79. And they deserve better from government than to be just cast aside and ignored. So it is their opinion that government don't care, as these are only 79 votes. Now, I don't wish to believe that, either on the floor or in any guise, that we would cast any group aside because of a vote. And what I would ask you, Minister, is to consider on that basis how we would deal with the 79 licence holders going forward. And if the resumption of the fishing isn't possible, then a hardship scheme should be reintroduced to take care of that. Thank you, Count Corla.